Hello and welcome to the walkthrough of my new plugin, Neutron, a multi-stage, multi-band distortion pedal. If you haven't heard it already, let's do a quick listen through and see what it sounds like. So the tone that you just heard is Neutron going straight into pretty much a stock Thal amp. If you want to check out the full mix breakdown, there is a free video on my Patreon that you can watch by clicking the link in the description. But today, the star of this show is Neutron, so let's get into it. What does it do? Who is it for? And what is it good at? So I built Neutron specifically designed to get these absolutely explosive low-end notes from extremely low-tuned guitars. This plugin was built from the ground up with the lowest tunings in mind and making sure we can push that into an amp and make it sound amazing. When searching for a different plugin that would provide this kind of result, I found that either A, it took many different plugins in series to achieve this result, or B, a lot of traditional fuzz or distortion pedals impart a really nasty texture into the high end of your tone. And Neutron does a couple things to address all of this. First off, it's only one plugin. All of the features that you need to make low-tuned guitars sound really good are all here in the same package. And then secondly, on top of that, there are three distinct blending modes built within Neutron to aim to address the texture issues that you find with a lot of the standard distortion solutions out there right now. So all of the different functions within Neutron all work together to achieve this kind of explosive low-tuned guitar result. So let's start off from the top and then we'll work left to right for the features on the pedal. So starting at the top, you'd find kind of what you'd expect. There's a volume in, a volume out. Then in the middle here, you have the ability to choose some factory presets and save your own presets, and you can choose from the different libraries there. Now getting into the fun stuff, starting on the left-hand side of the plugin, we have 4 different EQ knobs. We have growl, which is a low band EQ, tight, which is a low mid band EQ, bite is high mid, and we also included a high pass. I found the high pass was extremely important here, especially with really low tuned guitars. A lot of the time pushing all of that high frequency information into the amp can result in this really stringy, kind of nasty sound, and it definitely didn't help with that texture issue. So being able to roll off the signal around 1500 proved to be extremely beneficial. And then as far as the purpose for the other ones, the growl knob, being able to push a lot of low-end information into the amp, especially for guitars with thinner pickups. If you have a thin-sounding tone, growl is really good for that. It can also add a lot of sustain into the signal. Tight, I find, is pretty important for all guitars. I think most pickups by nature are just kind of muddy sounding. So being able to dial up that tight knob really helps tighten up the sound before it ever hits the distortion, which is extremely useful. Bite does a kind of similar thing in a different way. You're pushing more high mid information into the amp. This one I find is very guitar specific. Some pickups need this, some don't. Bite can add a lot of attack into the signal as well, and then combine that with the high pass knob. You can get a really crisp sounding DI before it hits the distortion, which is really nice. And you know, for some things, if you have a tone that's like 90% there, I found that oftentimes for some genres, especially genres in higher tunings like metalcore or deathcore, sometimes the EQ knobs here are all you need. They're extremely powerful. Each band goes up to plus or minus 30 decibels. So you can really go extreme on this if you want to. I find that really anything below 50 is more than enough in most cases. Moving on from that, in the middle of our unit here, you will find 2 different distortion types. I found this was absolutely crucial when getting the explosive tone that I was going for with this plugin. The first one that you'll come across, which is this slider here, this is our decimate distortion. As I iterated through different designs of this plugin, I found this one was absolutely crucial to be used with another stage of distortion in order to get this really crazy blown out sound. So at 0 dB, you have no distortion. As you drag the slider down, you decrease your ceiling, therefore you get more distortion. Next up is the drive knob, and I think you'll find this one a lot more familiar. You can drag the knob up or down to increase your drive percentage there. And this one is really extreme. You can of course drag this knob to taste, but where this plugin really shines and what makes these two different stages of distortion really useful is the multiband aspect of the plugin. And I think this is where a lot of other fuzz or distortion pedals kind of fall short of being able to provide this kind of tone. In the top right of the plugin, you'll see we have our three different blend modes here. We have a X-over, a blend knob, and a link octave to X-over, which we'll get to in a second. But let's talk about the X-over first. You can see as we drag the knob here, our hertz number up above is changing. And what this is telling us is everything below this number is receiving the processing of the plugin. For example, now I have it set at 308, so everything below 308 hertz is receiving this distortion. And this is what lets us drive these low-tuned guitar signals so hard into the amp without getting muddy. So this X-over function is probably one of the more useful features of the plugin, and I think it's worth noting that we're not capping the entire signal here. Behind the scenes, we're taking the signal, splitting it, running it through different parts in parallel within the plugin, and then recombining it at the end. So we still get this super distorted sound, but also we retain a lot of the high-end detail of the original signal, which is what allows us to push this so hard into the amp. So next up we have the blend knob, and this controls how much of that process signal we're adding to our original signal. So depending on the genre you're going for, sometimes like 5% is enough for more extreme effects like we were going through in the demo. I have it up to 70 here. Again, it's really nice. The plugin allows you to go way more than you normally need to, so you can go to 100, but most time you really don't need to do that. But it's cool to have the ability. Our third blending option is the link octave to X-over, but I think first we have to understand the pitch shifter function in the plugin. A lot of effort was put into making sure the pitch shifter sounded good while imparting minimal latency into the project. Pitch shifters by nature are going to have a little bit of latency, that's just how they work, but the effort was put in to make sure that that has been optimized so we can still resolve frequencies down to around 40 hertz while keeping the plugin fairly responsive. So I think it still would be possible to play through this real time even with the pitch shifting on, which with a lot of other plugins really is not the case. So we have the three different modes. You can have octave 0, which is no pitch shifting, octave -1, and -2, which is kind of what you would expect. It pitches it down 1 and 2 octave. Okay, so we can pitch octaves, but sometimes you don't need that, or you don't want it. But the nice thing is that in Neutron, you can blend in the low octave at any frequency you want to. So when I click the link octave to X-over button, now my octave shift is tied to the number that we set over here on the X-over knob. So for instance, if I use my number that I said earlier, like 308, now only the frequencies below 308 hertz are being pitched down an octave. So that's really cool. All of our original signal from 308 up is still being passed through as octave 0. The reason you might want to do this is because you could dial up the ground knob here and just push a lot of low into the amp. But being able to blend in a sub octave into your low end provides a different result that sounds really cool. And I think a lot more bands nowadays are starting to pick up that method instead of just pushing a lot of low end into the amp. Alternatively, this is amazing on bass guitar. So doing this and filtering the sub octave into a bass guitar puts so much sub into your mix, it is honestly quite ridiculous. So there's a couple cool use cases for the X over knob in conjunction with the octave settings. And hopefully you can start to see how these different pieces of the puzzle come together to give us some really crazy results. That can be anywhere from just, a minor push like an overdrive into your amp all the way up to just artistic, over-the-top, extreme distortion effects. So again, if you guys are interested to see how all of this plays into the context of a real mix, again, there's that free video on my Patreon where I go into the entire mix of the demo riff that we're using for Neutron. A lot of work went into making sure this thing sounds and looks as good as it does, so I'm extremely excited about it. I hope you guys are too. But for now, that's all for me, and I'll see you guys in the next one.